Some people never ask for help, and at first that can look like strength. They seem calm, capable, low maintenance, the kind of person who can carry a full life without making too much noise about it. They're the one who handles things, the one who figures it out, the one who says, "It's okay, I got it," before anyone even has the chance to offer. And after a while, everyone starts to believe them. But what people often miss is this: some people don't stay silent because they're strong. They stay silent because somewhere along the way, needing something started to feel dangerous. Because for them, asking for help doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it feels exposing. It feels risky. It feels like handing someone access to the part of you you've spent your whole life trying to keep under control. And once you understand that, a lot of their silence starts to make sense. You know this person. Maybe you are this person. They're usually reliable in a way that almost feels suspicious. They remember things, fix things, handle things. They can stay weirdly calm in situations that make everyone else spiral. They could probably organize a family crisis, answer 3 texts, make coffee, and emotionally support someone else, while actively falling apart on the inside. And somehow, no one notices, because these people become very good at looking okay. Not happy, not relaxed, not deeply supported, just functional. And in this world, if you're functional, people usually leave you alone. That's the trap, because the person who never asks for help is often the exact person who needed help the earliest. This pattern usually doesn't begin in adulthood. It starts much sooner. Sometimes it starts in a house where there was already too much going on, too much stress, too much tension, too many louder needs in the room. And without anyone saying it directly, the child learns something very quickly. This is not a good time to need anything. So they become easy to manage, easy to overlook, easy to praise. They become mature for their age, which is often just a polite way of saying no one noticed they were carrying too much too early. They stop asking for small things first, then bigger things, then emotional things. Then eventually, they stop expecting help at all. And that part matters, because there's a difference between being independent and no longer believing support is available to you. Some people learn this more directly. Maybe they did ask once. Maybe they cried, reached out, admitted they were overwhelmed, needed comfort, needed protection, needed someone to actually notice. And what came back was irritation, dismissal, embarrassment. Stop being dramatic. You're fine. Handle it. That kind of moment doesn't always look traumatic from the outside, but to a child, it can land like a rule. Don't do that again. Don't be too much. Don't make your feelings someone else's problem. So they adapt. And children are brilliant at adapting. They learn how to self-soothe before they should have to. They learn how to read the room. They learn when to stay quiet. They learn how to need less. And the strange part is, people often reward them for it. They get called strong, independent, responsible. So they keep going, because being needed feels safe. But needing feels dangerous. And over time, this stops being a coping mechanism and starts becoming an identity. They become the person who always has it together, the one no one worries about. The one who says, "I'm good," so automatically, it barely even counts as a sentence anymore. Even when they're not good. Especially when they're not good. And in adult life, this shows up everywhere. It shows up in the way they say, "Don't worry about me," with a straight face, while running on 4 hours of sleep, emotional burnout, and caffeine-based optimism. It shows up in the way they disappear when life gets heavy. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a "please come save me" way. More like they quietly go missing inside themselves. They stop replying. They withdraw. They isolate. Because if they can't handle it well, they'd rather handle it invisibly. That's the logic. If I'm struggling, I'll do it privately. If I'm breaking, I'll do it quietly. If I need something, I'll try to outgrow the need before anyone sees it. And that kind of self-reliance can look admirable from the outside, but from the inside, it's exhausting. Because the truth is, people who never ask for help are rarely people who need less. Usually, they just have a harder time believing they're allowed to need anything at all. And this becomes especially painful in relationships, because closeness sounds good in theory. They want connection, they want warmth, they want someone safe enough to finally exhale around. But intimacy has requirements. It asks for honesty. It asks for softness. It asks for the one thing they've spent years trying not to be: dependent. And for someone like this, that's terrifying, because dependence means trust, and trust means uncertainty. It means giving another person the power to disappoint you, leave you, misunderstand you, or make you feel foolish for needing them in the first place. So they do something very common and very sad. They stay available, but not fully reachable. They care deeply, but reveal selectively. They let people get close enough to enjoy their presence, but not close enough to witness their collapse. And if you've ever loved someone like this, it can be confusing, because they don't look closed off in the obvious way. They can be warm, funny, thoughtful, helpful, even affectionate. But there is often a private room inside them that stays locked, not because they don't care, but because somewhere in them there's still an old belief that says, if people see how much this actually costs me, I become harder to love. And that belief can shape an entire life. Here's the part people misunderstand most. These individuals are not always emotionally stronger than everyone else. They're often just more practiced at surviving without visible support. That's not the same thing. Being calm is not the same as feeling safe. Being competent is not the same as being okay. And being the strong one is not the same as being unhurt. A lot of hyper-independent people are not powered by confidence. They're powered by caution, by disappointment, by the private decision they made years ago that relying on themselves was simply less painful than risking reliance on someone else. And yes, that can make them impressive, but it can also make them lonely in a way that's hard to explain. Because the more capable they become, the less help people offer. The more composed they look, the less anyone checks in. The more they prove they can carry everything alone, the more the world lets them. And after a while, they don't even know how to interrupt that pattern. Because asking for help after years of silence doesn't feel simple. It feels humiliating. It feels unnatural. It feels like speaking a language they were never allowed to learn. So instead, they keep carrying the stress, the grief, the logistics, the emotional weight, the tiredness no one sees, the version of themselves that always says it's fine when it absolutely is not fine. And if this is you, here's the truth. Your silence is not proof that you're okay. It's proof that you learned how to survive without being noticed. And that may have protected you once, but it can also isolate you now. Because no one should have to earn care by collapsing. No one should have to become impossible to ignore before they're allowed to need something. And no, suddenly becoming vulnerable overnight is not realistic. That's not how this works. But maybe healing starts smaller than that. Maybe it starts with not automatically saying, I'm fine. Maybe it starts with telling the truth 1 inch at a time. Maybe it starts with letting one safe person see one unpolished part of you without rushing to clean it up. Because the goal isn't to become needy. The goal is to stop treating your humanity like a problem. And if you know someone like this, don't wait for them to ask. They probably won't. Not because they don't need support, but because they've trained themselves not to reach for it. So check on them, gently, consistently. without making them perform their pain for permission to be cared for. Because sometimes the people who seem the most okay are the ones who got the best at hiding how much they've been carrying alone.